on the Sponsor Refugees project, and we work across the UK building community sponsorship groups and supporting them to welcome families. The best way that I can really explain community sponsorship is by showing it. So I'd like to start by sharing a video of a sponsorship that happened not in Scotland, but in a rural Welsh town. Can everybody see my screen? Great. Hopefully this film works for you. Can you hear it?
Trip to Calais because it's quite easy. Lots of people in Pembrokeshire were going out to volunteer there, and it changed my direction. And when I came to leave, it hit me that the people I'd made friends with had no future. They had no home and no life and no legality, and it was heartbreaking. I thought surely some of those could come home with us to Wales.
نحن بفترة طبعا ما حسيت بالغربة. أي طفل بيحتاج رياحة نفسية، بيحتاج يلعب، بيحتاج يدرس.
The children speak both Welsh and English, so they're now getting trilingual.
What easy one?
Everyone said, oh, you can't expect them to learn 2 new languages at once, but they have. And the school are very proud of their achievements, both in the Welsh and academically.
اسمي ريماس. I love cardigan.
في الحقيقة هون بتحس حالك يعني معليش إنه أنت تحس حالك حقوقك كإنسان، في لك احترام، في لك هيك بيحترموك، بيحسسوك إنك أنت عن جد يعني.
We're doing what an extended family would do, and from my perspective, I have that relationship with them and so do others. It's not a temporary relationship, but it's not a relationship of one-way support. It's a mutual friendship.
Thank you very much for coming to this rather spontaneous and informal event. We hope to learn a little bit about Syrian cookery.
Can you help me?
The generosity of people is, to be honest, both moving and breathtaking.
Oh, a lot of Indianity there. Oh,
ولا حسيت بأن استقبال الجروب لنا بطريقة بحيث نحس بوضع غربة، بوضع إنه نحن بعيدين عن بلادنا.
جروب يعتبر عائلتي الثانية هون.
Community sponsorship is a lovely thing to do. It's very rewarding. It's a little kernel of perfection, but it's too small in Britain. This is too good to waste. It should spread.
Wow. I think that showed better than I ever could say in words the power of community sponsorship. Ahmed and his family, who you saw there over the pandemic, have been cooking meals for care workers to give back to the community that gave so much to them. And both fathers are now working in their community, which is wonderful. But I'll now rewind and go back to how we got community sponsorship in the UK. It was actually inspired by a similar scheme in Canada that was introduced in the 70s. And they've since welcomed over 330,000 people just private citizens welcoming them to their communities. And 1 in 20 Canadians has been directly involved in welcoming a family, which is incredible. So at the height of the Syrian refugee crisis in 2015, we campaigned together as communities to introduce the scheme here. And in 2016, the Archbishop of Canterbury welcomed the very first family through the scheme to live in Lambeth Palace, which is, not every family gets to live in Lambeth Palace, but the first family were welcomed to a palace. And since then, it's really grown. So we now have over 370 groups across the UK, including, as Wendy said, 15 in Scotland, all the way from the Isle of Lewis down to the tip of Cornwall. And we welcomed over 600 people so far. I'll briefly go through what you have to do for community sponsorship. You have to form a core group of committed people. It's a big task and it's not one that you can do alone. You have to prepare and submit applications to the Home Office and to your local council. These are your resettlement plans, so you explain how you'll help the family to learn English and find work and apply for benefits and so forth. You have to fundraise a minimum of £9,000. So the family will be eligible to claim benefits when they arrive, but so they are not paying for their day-to-day costs. But this fund is there to help with additional things like translators or disclosure checks or furnishing the house, that sort of thing. And you have to find a house for the family to rent for at least 2 years available to them. As we said, they will be able to claim housing benefits, but it's very rare that market rent meets housing benefits. So you're looking for a kind landlord who's willing to drop the rent for them. And when you have all of this in place, you're matched with a family who've been designated by the UN as particularly vulnerable and in need of resettlement here to the UK. And then the fun part really begins, because you go to the airport and you meet the family and you bring them to their home that you've prepared for them. And over the coming days and weeks and months, you support them as they get to know your local community, sign up for benefits and doctors and schools, start to learn English or possibly Gaelic, and then get to know their local community and feel welcome as they rebuild their lives here. Technically, you're committing to support for 1 year with housing for 2 years, but we hope by the end of that year, you'll have formed real strong friendships and relationships and will be in each other's lives for much longer than that. It is a big task and I don't want to brush over that, but I do want to say you are not alone in this. My organisation is here to help, as are Reset, who are also here on this call today. We have whole communities of people. We come together very regularly with sponsorship groups across the country, sharing ideas and tasks. We've got resources, we've got helplines, everything you need through the whole journey. So you're not alone. I'll just end by saying 3 reasons why I think community sponsorship is amazing. I could go on for hours on this, but I can just stick to 3 so that you get to have your dinners in time. The first is, this is a way to directly increase the number of people who can be brought safely here to the UK. It is practical, tangible thing that we can do in the face of overwhelming need. If, like me, you are watching on the news the terrible scenes happening in Afghanistan in the summer and still now in Syria and other conflict zones and feeling helpless, I want to tell you, we are not helpless. We can take action, and it might just be one family at a time. But as they say, it's a drop in the ocean, but the ocean is made up of little drops. Secondly, it is the warmest of welcomes. I was lucky to go to the airport just on Wednesday to welcome a family here to my hometown of Oxford. We had a banner at the airport that had been made by our local Scouts group with children who'd cut out love hearts to welcome them. When we got to the house, there was toys to unwrap for every day of their COVID isolation that had been collected by another Scouts group. The Muslim community came to bring them a ready-made meal to heat up, ready for them. The entire community is there at their back, ready and raring to help them as they rebuild their lives here. So it's not a surprise that research is showing that community sponsorship really does help with social integration outcomes for the family. And finally, this isn't just transformative for the families that we welcome, it's transformative for our own communities. I'll give just 2 examples of this. A woman called Eva who lived in Southeast London. It's less friendly in my experience than when I've visited my own family in Edinburgh, but she lived in Southeast London for 16 years and had never met her neighbours. She joined her local sponsorship group, and not long after, her shower broke, and she had 5 people who offered her a shower to use. That Christmas, she had 3 families who offered to spend Christmas Day with her. This is transformative for her and her ability to not feel lonely anymore and to feel connected to her community, as well as for the family they welcomed. And my own experience, I've moved around a lot, and before I joined my group in Oxford, I was living in East London with a group that was a partnership between 8 mosques, a church and a sixth form college. And it was so wonderful for me to be able to connect with people from such various different backgrounds, different faiths and communities and cultures. I really loved meeting people who I would just pass by in the street and otherwise never get to know. And through this, I now know my neighbours on a much deeper and meaningful level. So I'll leave it there because it's much better to hear from Gill and Lina, who've been part of this process. So thank you. I don't know if I should segue straight in, Sabina.
Yeah, I was just going to invite you to interview Gill and ask her a bit about her experience of welcoming a family. I'll just find her to spotlight her.
Thanks so much. So yeah, we're delighted that Gill and Lina have joined us. And we'll start with you, Gill. If you could introduce yourself.
Hi everybody, so my name is Gill. I'm a member of the Salvation Army Church in Sutton, which is in southwest London. And when we began our community sponsorship team, I was the project manager of that team.
Thanks, Gill. And what motivated you to get involved in community sponsorship?
Well, I think as a church, we had been, as soon as the Syrian crisis, the conflict began, you know, it was in our news all the time. As a church, we were praying for the situation. We were collecting materials and things to try and send to people that were in a difficult situation, but it just felt as if there was nothing we could do really. And then we got to hear about the community sponsorship scheme, because after the Archbishop of Canterbury welcomed a family, the next family to arrive went to a Salvation Army group just down the road from us in Rains Park, because the church leader there had been very involved in setting up the scheme over here. And so we invited him, that's a minister called Nick Coke, and his wife Kerry, and they came to talk to any of us that were interested at church. And really, it was just a storytelling that got us. It completely smote us, and from feeling there was nothing we could do, we suddenly realized there was something we could do. And although we didn't know how we were going to do it, because it sounded like a big job to do, not the least getting a house. Where are you going to find a house? It's, you know, housing is so expensive where we are. But we just felt we had to do it. And anybody who saw that news report where that little boy, Alan Kurdi's body was washed up on the beach, you just thought it was just so too close to home and we needed to do something about it.
Thanks, Gill. And what has been your highlight in this journey?
My highlight has been getting to know an amazing family. We've had so many, I won't say it's all easy because it isn't, because we're people and we still have life experiences and difficult situations happen, but it's just been eye-opening. And can I tell you a couple of highlights really that we've had as a team? So our family arrived, you'll meet Lina very soon, and her husband have 3 boys, twins and a younger boy. And it happened a few months after they'd been here that they've left so many family behind. Their family are in Syria, Sweden, Germany, Egypt, Jordan. They've just been totally dispersed. But Fadi's sister, who was had gone to Germany, had been resettled in Germany, was a student and was coming over to London on a school trip. And I got a phone call from a German teacher who said, I've got somebody here who would like to meet her brother, and Fadi and somehow we managed to get together, and I went up on the train with Fadi to meet Ayat. We had a few hours together, and we took her back to Sutton so she could see the family. She met the youngest child who she'd not ever met before, Yusuf, and it was just incredible. And when we only had a few hours and we had to get back up to London to meet the school trip, we had to go back to Germany. And when I got there, I met the German teachers and the head teacher of the college, and we just embraced. It was the most amazing thing. And we were all just thanking each other for bringing this brother and sister together who hadn't seen each other for so many years. And another highlight, I'll just tell you quickly, was on Christmas Day 2019, we had our church service in the morning, which is a lovely time. The children bring their toys, and Lina and Fadi and the boys all came down for the end of the service, and they had made so many Syrian delicacies, and they were just moving around the congregation, handing out all these amazing eats. And, you know, we were all going home to eat our Christmas lunch, but we couldn't resist. It was just a lovely time of welcoming this family once more into their new family of the church.
That's so beautiful. Thank you, Gill. You did say it wasn't all easy. If you could share briefly, what was one of the challenges that you faced?
The big challenge was getting a house, because there's such a housing shortage in London, and we didn't feel that, you know, it would go down very well if we just brought a family in and they took a place that other families locally had been waiting for on the council waiting list. So lots and lots of prayer about that, and a few miracles along the way. We actually ended up buying a house, just a small house, but very close to our church. And that helped in many ways, in that we made connections with lots of people in order to make that possible. And I think the other main problem is managing everybody's expectations. The family arrive with all kinds of expectations of what life will be like here, and our team have all kinds of expectations of what the family will be like and what they will need. And it's quite a PR job or an HR job, I'm not sure what it is, but to manage all those expectations, because it's a very emotional time. So you have to be very careful about making sure that nobody oversteps the mark, nobody expects too much of the family too quickly, but also managing all the many emotions that the family will arrive. It's a huge high. That welcome is incredible. You know, we'll never forget that day. But we describe the journey as a series of peaks and troughs, up and down, and you just have to be prepared for that. And having a strong team to help with that is absolutely essential.
Thanks, Gill. That's really important to hear about the managing of expectations. Thank you. And finally, what impact has this had for you and for your community?
Well, massive. I'm a different person now, I think. I've learned such a lot. My whole understanding of different cultures, a different faith has just been expanded. If you spoke to our church leader, he would say community sponsorship, he does say it very often, community sponsorship is the best thing he's done throughout his whole ministry. And I think what it's brought to our church is an opportunity for everybody to be involved. There are so many things that we needed. We needed practical skills, financial skills, people that are teachers that could help with the learning when the family first arrived, people to get the house decorated. You know, there were just so many things. Financial advice, somebody that had a link with the bank, medical services, medical professionals. But there was something for everybody, and it was a great way of bringing people to feel that they really belonged to this community that was doing something together.
Thanks so much, Jill. It's really inspiring to hear from you. And those of you who are lucky to be in a breakout room later with Jill will get to ask even more questions. So thank you. We're now going to bring in Lina. Hi, Lina. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, yes. Hello, I'm Lina, and I'm talking on behalf of my husband. He is Fadi, and I am mom for 3 children. We are a Syrian family who left the home, and we moved to Jordan. We lived there for 7 years, nearly 7 years, and then we came to the UK by the UNHCR. We have been in the UK for 2 years and 10 months, exactly.
Thanks, Lina. And you were welcomed by Jill's church group.
Yeah.
Thank you. What was your first impression when you first came to the UK?
When we just arrived to the airport, we had mixed feelings: excited, happy, worried, confused. Happy, excited to start the new life. Worried and confused because we have been told UK has hard rule to understand. How the culture would be, and you know, how is the education system. However, when we saw Gill and the group, we felt like how important we were for them. And we saw how much we mean for them. And we realized then that the what's its name? It's welcome banner they hold, and it's full of hand paper. So everyone shared to help us. Everyone stuck his hand on this, which is inspired us. We all inspired because this is really impressed us.
Thanks, Lina. So everyone in the church had made a handprint, which was on the welcome banner.
Yeah,
it's so beautiful. Thank you. And how did Jill and the group support you?
At the beginning, they arranged a timetable for us. So they just book an appointment in advance. So we stick on the timetable, and they done really well. It's like the beginning, you know, to the bank, to the job center, to this for the school, many things we have to do it. And between that, there's some like to find out the shops and supermarkets, and then we found like friends, and we went to trips together. They didn't leave us alone. They keep us busy, so we don't think a lot about what we left behind, because it's hard to think about at this time. It's hard to think about the family behind, so we need to be busy.
Thanks, Lina. And what was a highlight for you?
Highlight. It's respect. Everyone respect each other. We feel like we are human, and respect is very important. And the education system. Yeah.
Thank you. That's really moving to hear. Thank you. And my final question, Lina, what advice would you give to the people listening now if they're thinking about doing community sponsorship?
I could say try to find a volunteering job for the family, for the father and or the mother, or helping children by providing them with some activities. There's another thing, which is set up a session to help the family understand the rules in the UK. Because many things we can't just say it. It needs to understand what it is and how we will get it. So it's really important.
Thank you so much, Lina. It's really moving hearing from you. We welcomed a family on Wednesday, like I said, and just yesterday we had that session. They were told that there's 4 words you need to know in English. Sorry, please, thank you, and excuse me. And then you will be fine. And that you should always be on time. And then today I was 10 minutes late, so I ruined the lesson that they were taught yesterday. But yeah, it's really important to help people understand. Thank you so much, Lina, and thank you so much, Gill. It's great. We're really inspiring to hear from you both.
Excuse me, but I need to say, if this sessions could be in Arabic to help them understand it well.
Definitely, yeah, that's really important. Thank you, Lina.